Hey, everybody. Welcome back for another episode of the GovTech Advisors podcast. My name is Andrew, and I have a very special guest with me today. We've actually been trying to set this up for some time. Sam Navarro of the GSA is with us today. In full disclosure, Sam and I have been talking for actually a couple of years, and there was a couple of months ago, we started talking and sharing some notes. Because I saw him on another podcast and I was like, oh, he can't do another podcast and not be on my podcast after we've been talking so long. So Sam, thank you so much for joining the podcast today.
Thanks for having me, Andrew, and really appreciate being here. And we, as you stated, have had conversations during the pandemic, and it's great to continue that dialogue post-pandemic, well, sort of post-pandemic, and figuring out ways that we can collaborate.
Yeah, absolutely. As I kind of led on, Sam, you work for the GSA, but you actually have an incredible experience. You're a veteran, a 12-year veteran in the Army. You've done a lot within state and local government and the GSA. And also, I don't want to spoil it. I was gonna introduce you with your new title because as of, I don't know, 5 minutes ago, basically, you got a promotion and you got a new title. So I wanted you to do the honors of talking about your new role and what you've been doing recently.
Yes, so since we last spoke, I've been moved on and upward to the Technology Transformation Services, and I am now the Director of Customer Services for the Centers of Excellence. So we focus on helping agencies, state and local entities as well, in modernization projects, large enterprise modernization projects, and figuring out how to move them forward to the next iteration of technology, right? Move them forward, move them upward, and be a catalyst for optimizing, improving citizen-facing services. But as you say, I started my IT career back in 2002 when I signed up to be a Department of the Army signal soldier or technologist, and spent 11 years out of the 12 overseas in the European, Central, Middle Eastern theater, and pretty much haven't looked back since. Technology has been a passion of mine, and I've seen it enable just so much good, whether it's for the defense of our country or in other circumstances that we'll talk within this podcast, how technology has really driven us to help people, help our citizens, help our nation, take us to the next level and defend ourselves as well. So after my stint with the Department of Defense of doing technology and putting technology in austere locations, I signed up to work in the General Services Administration in their telecommunications office to do federal acquisitions. And I worked on the third largest telecommunications contract in government, and helping to incorporate some of the telecommunications technology we see today, such as Ethernet, software-defined networking, et cetera. And I moved from that job to help agencies then transition and move over to our new telecommunications contract, the Enterprise Infrastructure Solutions contract. That's federal only, but it's a $55 billion IDIQ contract. And so from there, I've been progressing to then I worked across the portfolio. I was previously, in my previous capacity, the Director of Customer Strategic Solutions. Folks would come, whether you were state, local, tribal, or federal, to my office, and they would say, hey, I don't know what I need. I just need a technology that can help me enable to do this. Or here's a sticky problem I have. Do you have a technology that can help me? And my job and my division's job in that role was to find the right technological solution and the right acquisition vehicle for them to buy into and continue doing their job, which part and parcel in that job, that's where we met Andrew, and talking about now transitioning the classroom to virtual environments. Folks were looking for tools that schools can use at an enterprise level to facilitate teaching right from home, right, in the pandemic normal. And so now I've moved on from that to now intimately working with different agencies on modernization projects, from improving their infrastructure to moving them over to the cloud, to CX work, where we really look at the customer experience and how can we enable it to be more human-centered, more human-focused, right, to simplify the experience, all the way to data analytics, right? Data is the new fuel behind a lot of the technical solutions that we have. And previously, we used to say, hey, if we can scale something across the board, it's great. Now it's like folks want to jump onto a lot of these platforms and say, how is this experience being catered to what I need, right? If I'm 19-year-old Sam, my needs on citizen-facing services may be different than if I'm 62-year-old Sam, right? 19-year-old Sam may be looking for, I don't know, a health plan on health.gov, and maybe looking for tuition assistance, whereas 62-year-old Sam's going to be looking for, well, what are my retirement benefits and different aspects of healthcare. Now I may be moving to retirement age. So we're really working and honing in on seeing how we can improve the experience, because that's where I think government provides the most value, is when you can tap into the benefits that the citizens have paid for easily, and work with government easily to deliver value to the life of every American.
Yeah. Well, so you actually said a couple of different things that I want to key in on, but I want to break it down a little bit. But I'm sure there's people that are listening to this podcast saying federal government and CX in the same sentence. Most people would say like, yeah, right. Like, but it's, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, how can you talk a little bit more about what you guys are doing to improve CX or access to these technologies or ideas? Because I think a lot of people, when they deal with the government, not just state and local, but especially the federal government, I know myself, especially sometimes I'm like, I don't even know where to begin. How do I even find the thing that I want? How do I get to the right resource that may eventually lead me to Sam? And so, yeah, I think it's incredible that you guys are taking so much emphasis on CX for the federal government for these types of programs and technology. Would you mind diving into that a little bit?
Sure, yeah, and it's very well needed. So I can empathize with folks. I'm a citizen as well, and we're looking at optimizing it because we all benefit. And there's three critical components. I would say first is the customer, second is the data, and then third is rethinking about the way we think about innovation. So first, the customer, you have to listen to the customer. And so the government's been making concerted efforts in pockets, in areas where we think we could have quick wins, in understanding what are the needs of the citizen that's on the other side of that service. So for example, you saw just at the beginning of this year, for example, how we pivoted quickly with IRS and authenticating people to do their taxes. And we quickly pivoted from biometrics to authenticating people through other ways on a program we have here at GSA called login.gov. That took a concerted effort in listening to the customer and understanding where they wanted us to meet them at, right? And the level of trust was there to authenticate in other areas, and in other areas it wasn't. So that takes a lot of research, and then applying that research to the actual CX experience to satisfy the citizen on the other end. And then that ties into data. How do we look at data, right? Previously, we used to look at data in chunks, right? And the idea was, can we create a scalable solution, kind of a cookie cutter approach, one path that meets all, and if it meets 80% of the mark, good, thumbs up. But the objective is continuously striving for excellence through the data we're collecting to make sure that we can cater a solution or a service for the citizen on the other end. So there's areas where folks are very familiar. I'll stick with the same tax scenario, where depending on if you're a business owner or if you're just filing as a single person, the experience should be different. And so we're leveraging data to make sure that every day we're expediting and optimizing the experience depending on who you are as a citizen and what's the outcome you're looking for. And then last but not least is innovation. And I think this is an area where the government's been really evaluating where we're at. And leveraging best business practices that we've seen in industry. And beforehand, innovation was all the chips at the center of the table, go big or go home, right? One big swoop at trying to change the world. And if it didn't work, it was a big waste of resources, right? And if it did, you hit the jackpot. And I think what we're looking at innovation now is, in an innovative way, is how can we make small investments in a lot of different ways of doing something, and then quickly fail on the ones that don't necessarily align to our customer needs, our citizen-facing needs, and then invest the dollars in the ones that do. So innovation now has gone from just dropping all of our resources on one great idea to investing small on a lot of many great ideas, and then making sure we hone in on the ones that are successful and quickly fail and learn from the ones that aren't, so that we could drive as much value as we can with the ones that are successful.
I could totally see somebody tuning into this podcast, like in the middle, they just scrub forward, and all the things that you're saying, they'd be like, oh, I wonder what SaaS tech startup we're talking about right now, because you're talking about building quick, failing fast. You're talking about emphasis on CX and using data. I think a lot of people would be like, I can't believe that the federal government is taking this level of care to kind of solve some problems. But which is also one of the reasons why I was really excited and wanted you to come on this podcast, because I think a lot of people, one of the reasons I actually started this was because there's so much, there's a notion that dealing with government has to be hard, or buying from the government isn't easy, or working with the government is hard, or selling to the government is difficult. And so, it's really refreshing to see some of these concepts that, in the private sector, or maybe, in small startups you guys are applying over there. And you're right. I've seen some of these examples that you've talked about, myself going through taxes, and I've seen even just doing some research in general of working with the federal government. It's some of that aspects were easier to find the path to. Now, one of the things you talked about as you guys are kind of building fast and investing into technology, I know you guys are trying to source a lot of innovative products. You're trying to bring solutions not only to the federal government, but you're also trying to take some lessons learned from the federal government and bring that down to state and local government as well. And so can you talk a little bit about, one, when you guys are trying to find the right technology to solve problems, what are you guys doing in order to kind of help empower state and local? How's the federal side of things trying to help state and local government procure some of these technologies faster? Because to the point that you made about COVID, I mean, I think when all of that, and yeah, some people will say we're in a post-pandemic world, some people would say no, but at the beginning of it, a lot of things had to be decided very, very quickly. And so I know that a lot of you, and especially you yourself, took those lessons to try to find other ways to help people procure and solve problems faster. And you've set aside a bunch of money. We talked about that before. We'll dive into that a little bit. So can you dive in a little bit more about that?
Yeah, and that's a great question, because if you interact with your federal government every now and then, you probably interact more with your state and local and even tribal entity more often than not, right? First responder services, a lot of the utilities that you use on a daily basis, your state and local government probably has more of an impact. Education, right? Your state and local government has a lot more impact on your daily life than us at the federal government do. And so what we see is that there's a lot of areas where we've been partnering through our cooperative purchasing agreement with state and local on solutions that have worked for law enforcement, for example, on a federal level, that can now work for state and local. I'll give you an example. After 9/11, the commission wrote a report that said, hey, wireless services were literally useless after the event transpired because phones got saturated. Folks started calling their loved ones, and obviously, and for rightfully so, they were concerned about the status of their loved ones, but that diminished the ability for first responders to communicate in a variety of ways and use those same lines to make sure that they were coordinating amongst each other. So out of that came FirstNet, which now is a band of wireless technology specifically for the first responder community that they can use to coordinate amongst each other in the event of a catastrophe in that manner. So we're ready now to react in a more positive fashion to a catastrophe of that scale now than we were before. So that lesson learned that we learned at the federal level is now a capability that federal agencies are buying into, and now is available for state and local and tribal entities as well, for first responders that want to tap in as well. And so that's just one example out of many where we've learned the lesson, hopefully sometimes through others and other nations, right? And we incorporate it here, but even sometimes ourselves, and we just want to make sure that we're continuously moving forward and advancing in a manner where we incorporate the changes that are needed for the next catastrophe, and so do your state and your locality. So it doesn't have to necessarily happen again. So that's one way through the cooperative purchasing. But then another side of that is in our technology transformation services. It's not just about, hey, here's a tool, figure it out, right? Here's FirstNet, figure it out how it works with your first responders or how it works with your locals and community, just figure it out locality. But now it's about, do you need the human capital and the subject matter expertise to deploy it? And that's where TTS comes into play. So we have 18F, which is a group of folks who work on designing, developing, and deploying digital services within an agency or a state and locality. And then we also have, on the other side of that, we have the Centers of Excellence, which I'm a part of, which helps with a lot of big rock, big movement, enterprise level deployments of digital technology. So GSA, we want to be a catalyst for modernizing government, for optimizing it for everyday citizens, not only by saying, here's the tools, but can we help you incorporate and apply and deploy those tools in a way that makes sense for you?
Would it be safe to say that would TTF be more, you guys are going to try to build it yourselves in-house, and the Centers of Excellence are looking outwardly to say, here's what's already available, and can we take that and partner better and then adopt that internal?
So yeah, the Technology Transformation Services, TTS, they're the consultant arm, I would say, of GSA. So 18F would work on like a very niche specific application. A state and locality could say, hey, I need an app for folks to tap into if they believe they have COVID symptoms, for example, right? And look at whatever the Surgeon General's suggestions are or their state and locality suggestions are. 18F could, for example, as that example, help build a capability specific and a niche. Whereas Centers of Excellence, it's about IT modernization, but to scale at the enterprise level. So a state and locality may say, I have all of these enterprise solutions on-prem in a server warehouse somewhere, and I want to save money and move it to the cloud. I just don't know how to get there. I don't know how to rationalize all of these applications and figure out how to move it from point A to point B. So Centers of Excellence, we're more of that big lift and shift work where we come in and then do a discovery phase and do a design phase where we can help agencies or state and localities and tribal entities move larger solutions from legacy technology to more modern and efficient technology.
And so it sounds like either or, you guys are maybe looking inwardly or you're looking outwardly. It just might, the scale or the scope may be a little bit different. But you actually touch upon something that I hear about all the time. I went through this years ago of, if I have a technology or a solution or a device or something along those lines, and I want the state and local government or federal government to be able to use it, how do I, like, I'm sure there's multiple paths to get in there, but I'm sure, just like you talked about early on in the pandemic, we got linked up because you had reached out to me, trying to find a solution that you knew of a problem. And we were just kind of collaborating, and I was getting you linked up with different resources. But if I was a company that I knew that I had a technology that could benefit the government, or how do I understand when the government says like, I might need X, Y, or Z, how does somebody find out about that and start that process of just, trying to link up with you guys?
That's a great question. And our answer, I think, is twofold. And first and foremost, it's understanding the vertical you're in and which agencies are playing within that space. So if you're in an education vertical, the Department of Education, maybe an agency that you're interested in doing business with, well, it's really doing the homework, right? So, at the early stages, it's understanding what their mission is, what are their strategic objectives, what are some of the pain points they're dealing with, and we're trying to open transparency on this by really putting a lot of that information out there. There's the itdashboard.gov that highlights a lot of the high-level projects that are going on within that agency. There's also agency public-facing websites that also highlights a lot of projects, and knocking on some doors, right? A lot of agencies pride themselves on having press organizations or public-facing organizations internally that you can email or ask questions or request a meeting with to really intimately know the sector you're working in and what the public sector opportunities are within that space. So that'd be the first thing I would say. And I think once you know the space, know the other private sector folks that are competing within that space. I think that we're in a space now where we need to think differently when it comes to competition. I think there's a lot of times where you'll see that your competitor and yourself could potentially partner for some opportunities that are at a larger scale. So think about partnerships within industry that may enable you to start doing work and learning the space that you're focused in, or the technology, the space you think your technology may be able to apply value to. And then last but not least, and this is highly important because GSA, we want to promote and propel small businesses to the next level, is tap into the SBA and a lot of the resources they have. They are advocates of making sure that we are supporting small disadvantaged businesses. I think 70% of the United States is employed by a small business. So small business is the backbone of our economy. And we want to make sure that we have tools at your disposal, whether it's financing, whether it's other information relevant and needed to compete within the public space, even set-asides. So if you could get set-aside criteria met in SBA, or your 8A criteria met with the SBA, that can give you a leg up for a lot of these contracts that are out there and are only competed within the small business space. So those are just some things to think about there. And then GSA, we have some things going on that I'd like to mention. I don't want to ramble on too much, but if you have an agency that says, hey, Andrew, or whoever's out there, I like this technology you're providing. Are you on a GSA contract vehicle? You may not be today, but if that agency is willing to sponsor you, we could fast lane you on in as quick as 15 days to the schedule. If you have an agency that's willing to, say, hey, we want to sponsor this industry partner. They have a valuable technology that we definitely need to bring onto the government-wide acquisition solutions. We could fast lane you on and make sure then those offerings are relatively quickly available for government consumption.
Is that onboarding onto a schedule? Because in my previous life, I went through the FedRAMP process. Is that FedRAMP? Is that what you're talking about, or has that changed?
No, yeah, FedRAMP is the cybersecurity aspect. So if you have a cloud solution, you want to make sure it's FedRAMP compliant.
Yeah.
Fastlane is just, how can I get a contract on schedule as quickly as possible?
Right. So for
you'd organize all the line items you have, all the offerings, and you submit them to the office. and they'll fast lane you, they'll onboard you quicker if you have an agency that's willing to vouch and say, we want to consider this technology for utilization.
Yeah. Okay. So let's step back, because I think a lot of people are thinking, okay, you gave a great resource with itdashboards.gov, so I can see kind of what's out there. And then you made a really good point of saying, well, start researching competitors in the space. Is there another resource that you would say would be great to do deeper research outside of Google? I know of one that I've worked with, and I'm friends with the GovSpend guys, and so you can look in to see what the government's spending money on and contracts. But is there certain Jack Signey's is what name, by the way. Do you have any resources outside of itdashboards.gov that somebody could do deeper research on, maybe specific areas that they wanted to serve?
Yes, here at GSA, we sustain and maintain a system called Federal Procurement Data System, FPDS.gov. And the value add on this system is you get to see all of the contracts that have been awarded. You can break it out by your specific NAICS code within the industry you work. And the cool thing about a lot of opportunities in the federal space is a lot of those contracts are going to be recompeted, right? They have a period of performance. That period of performance ends, and it's time to recompete that business where potentially the incumbent can get the contract, or someone else who could offer a better proposal can. And so that's another asset, I think, and another tool in your toolbox that agencies can use just to kind of get a general landscape of what's out there, and then understand what may be coming up in their pipeline for opportunities for them to compete.
Sure. Yeah, because I think we've gone through this. I've gone through this personally, and I've seen it time and time again to say, like, I don't even know how to get in there, but there's some great resources. There's some great people. There's some great tools. And also, for those of you guys that are listening, I'll be sure to put everything, links in the comments and all that as well. And to kind of puff up Sam a little bit as well. Like, I'll put Sam's LinkedIn page on there, and if you guys haven't, you should follow him, because Sam, Sam's talking about this stuff, but Sam talks the talk and walks the walk. So I literally see him building these bridges, bringing these people to the forefront, and bringing these ideas. It's not just fluff that he's talking about. Your LinkedIn game is strong for a federal employee, Sam, by the way.
Thanks, Andrew. Well, also, I'd be remiss, speaking of platforms,
yeah.
buy.gsa.gov, buy.gsa.gov. A lot of folks see the journey to get on schedule challenging. As I said, with listening to the customer industry, we've heard you, and we've tried to simplify it on this platform. So we try to help you through the journey. On there also, you could get directly in contact with our help desk. Hey, I'm stuck in this point. Can you help me get to the next step? So please visit that site if you're interested in getting on a government-wide acquisition vehicle or the schedule. We're simplifying the process every day, right? And it's a journey for us, and also give us feedback if there's something else, some other tools we can add to that platform to simplify the onboarding experience for industry.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing, and I invoke Jack Siney on this podcast quite a bit, because for the people that are listening here, going through some of these resources that Sam is talking about and helping Sam and his group solve some of these problems, the government is, at the end of the day, just another company, just like everybody else, right? And so they buy everything just like everybody else has. So there's if you make a unique solution, or you solve a problem, or maybe you do it better, the federal government probably has a need for that. But the thing that I love specifically about what you guys have been doing over the past couple of years is, there's these contracts and these schedules and these things in order to transact with the federal government. But a lot of times, when you do create something that dealing and bringing that to state and local governments, because the entire makeup of a state or a local government is that it's unique to the next local government next to it, or the state that's next to it. They may do things differently. So a lot of people have a problem of saying, hey, I just won this deal here, or I solved this problem in this local spot. Well, how do I take it over here? How do I, the procurement's different. And so I love, can you talk a little bit more about how the GSA helps? Because correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that on certain schedules, state and local government can purchase directly off of those schedules too. So if your procurement lane, I mean, it's like a ski slope. You're going right into that local government because you can go right off the schedule that you're on with the federal government.
Right. The cooperative purchasing agreement enables that. And in particular, you're right, Andrew, state and local are interested in buying commercially available solutions just like the federal government is.
Yeah.
So we've already negotiated pricing and determined it to be fair and reasonable based on the market value of whatever the product or service may be. We have also broken it down into the consumption model that's in accordance with industry. And then last but not least, I think the value of using the schedule is the trust, right? You understand that you're working with industry partners that have a history now of doing this for some time. I think 2 years is the threshold, and or if you're being fast laned or springboarded, you have references of customers that have said, yep, this industry partner has a reputation of being able to deliver within this space.
Right.
And so the cooperative purchasing agreement opens the door for states, localities, tribal as well, to buy a lot of the IT we're buying off of the schedule at the same price and with the same capabilities readily available for them. And also, it's a great opportunity for industry to put new offerings on. Think about this. As technology evolves, the way we consume technology changes as well. And the schedule is a great opportunity for getting ahead of the power curve and then promoting yourself within the public space to say, hey, this is the new solution that's going to be able to take you to the next level for this capability. And it's available on the schedule, right? And it's been priced out already and it's already been scoped out. So GSA has done half of the work for you. All you have to do now is compete the work. And if we win your business, we'll be happy to support you in that capacity. So I think vendors now thinking outside of the box has been really beneficial to see, where they're submitting proposals and telling agencies and telling state and localities, this is how we think you should consume this product or service. And here's how we have it laid out in the contract, right? In the base contract and the schedule. So, it's a way to separate yourself kind of from the pack. It's a way to make sure that when that evaluation is being done of your proposal, you can show additional value and equity that you're going to drive in that space to potentially other ways or traditional ways of doing business.
That's such a unique way to put it, to look at it too, because I'm in sales. I've been in sales almost my entire career. So having gone through that due diligence as a company, that would be a fantastic differentiator if you're going up against head to head with somebody else. Like, oh, by the way, the federal government thinks that I'm pretty okay, and I've already gone through all the hoops. So if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for you. So yeah, that's a great way to put it. So with that, a lot of people that listen to this podcast know that I'm a massive nerd. And so I really love that you were talking about that you were passionate about technology and coming in. So let's nerd out just for a second. What's some of the cool things that you guys are looking to solve right now? Like, is there something you guys are hunting down right now? Are you talking to somebody? Maybe I'm asking some questions that you're not allowed to answer, but like, what's some cool things, cool tech that you guys are going into right now?
Yeah, that's a phenomenal question. And you're right. I mean, emerging technology and the space of technology is really blossoming, right? And there's a lot of technologies in the hype cycle right now that are really driving some innovation. I'd say first and foremost, when you talk about the network infrastructure, it really was sometimes the aspect of your stack that would set you back a bit, right? Because especially when we were tied down to wireline solutions versus wireless, and the promise of having higher bandwidth, higher data rates, lower latency with 5G is truly an opportunity to untether ourselves or untie ourselves from the wireline network and think about the art of the possible in terms of what use cases now are enabled through a faster wireless network. And we've been looking at things that reside on top of that network, such as artificial intelligence. How can we get the robot kind of out of people's day-to-day tasks, and in particular in the first responder or state and locality space, so that we could free people up to do work that's more intuitive, right? That's more human-centric. And we're talking about a lot of these single domain tasks that really can be empowered now through a faster network with smart and intelligent solutions residing on top of it, sometimes residing in the edge, or it could be residing in the cloud. So from a high level perspective, we're really intrigued and interested in how to move and make folks more mobile with the different services that they provide the public through the network now that's slowly but surely getting faster on the wireless side, and then smart, intelligent solutions on the back end, enabling them to make decisions faster and do their work a lot more efficiently.
Yeah. Well, selfishly, I love that you keep, and this was not planned, but I love that you keep bringing up the work within FirstNet and first responders, because I live in that world a lot. I provide professionally a lot of solutions over there. So thank you for that work that you're doing every single day. Not only does it help them, it helps me, it helps a whole bunch of other people for a lot of different reasons. That's really, really cool. So one of the things I'd like for you to dive into, because and we ask this a lot on the episodes as well, is a lot of people don't even, or I would say this, if somebody has a IT or technical background, or if they are passionate about that kind of stuff, I don't know of many people that said, I want to go work for the federal government, like, and do that for the federal government. So talk to me about working for the federal government in that capacity, and more importantly, like, if somebody did want to come work within your group or within a group like yours, what would they expect? What should they expect? What's the good? What's the bad? What's the ugly? What are some of the things that they might be able to do that would help them impact not only themselves, but then helping their communities too?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I get that a lot from, especially a lot of young kids graduating who are interested in applying their knowledge and their skill set to technology in the public sector. I would say first and foremost, you're probably going to get a better offering in terms of just dollars and cents in the private sector than the public. But keep this in mind, I think that it's a calling. It's a calling to serve your nation, right? Not just a calling to serve yourself. And I think at the heart of being a public servant, and in particular in technology these days, is the value of selfless service, of sacrifice. And sacrifice in particular because you're applying your skills to the betterment of the public, right? And the betterment of people who need it, whether it's first responder services who need technologists as well, or law enforcement, or education, go down the list, transportation, go down the list. And then I would say, secondly, it's an ability to make one challenge you're seeing as a young person or as a technologist a little bit better, right? We talk about, for example, climate change and the challenges we're facing there. I'll probably bring it home for you, Andrew, as a first responder. Think about all of the wildfires we're dealing with now because of climate change, and how challenging it was for first responders to respond and deal with those, and the lives we were losing through brave men and women who would sacrifice their lives to go out there and deal with these fires. Well, how has FirstNet and wireless technology now enabled us to put out fires in a way that saves lives and also keeps the firemen and women who are doing that work safe, right? Think about now having, through wireless technology, the awareness of where every fire man and firewoman is at every time. And if there's a change in the wind or a change in the direction the fire is heading, they could in advance anticipate that and move the responders to areas where they're safe. Or they can apply fire restraining tactics and techniques to where it's needed the most. You're no longer just rolling up to a fire site and kind of going by the whim, so to speak, right? All of that was enabled through technologists that said, hey, how can we make this a lot more efficient and effective for the men and women who are serving in this capacity? And that's just one vertical out of many. Now, I know a lot of the folks that were intimately involved in that on the government side, and I could tell you, you're not going to get the big bonus at the end of the year, right? You're not going to get a lot of the accolades or the things that you would get in the private sector. But each one of those men and women and technologists could go home knowing that they've made their country safer, they've made their nation a better place now for the people who choose to sacrifice and put their lives on the line to take care of a lot of these things we need taken care of. And one more firefighter goes home to his family because of the technology that they've helped apply within that space. Think about that. You've saved lives in a big way and to scale across 50 states, serving over 350 million of our fellow citizens. So I think that's really the return on investment, is the ability to serve and really contribute to something that's bigger than just kind of internal to ourselves, right? Contributing to something that really you can look back at and generation to generation say, I contributed to making this place we call home a little bit better than it was before I got involved.
You just took the reason why I love working in the government space and just articulated way better than I ever have. And so I thank you for that. And you're right, because I've sold across a lot of different sectors, and it's great. And to win is great, but winning and some of my favorite wins and the things that I remember are the ones that I've worked with in state and local that made a direct impact to children's lives, family. Like you can see it. It's right there in your face. And so, you gave me some resources of people that want to sell into the government. Is there like if somebody wants to try to find any open positions on the centers of excellence or the TTS or the GSA, is like, what's the best? Is there job boards for this stuff? Is there are you guys posting on Indeed or ZipRecruiter? Or ZipRecruiter if you want to sponsor this podcast. No, I'm joking. What's the best way to find a way to work with the government?
Yeah, I'd say go to your local Army recruiter in particular. I'm a former soldier, all right? Yeah. Old habits die hard. That's the way I did it. But not everybody has to do it the way. I tell you what, it's been amazing working for GSA, and I would tell every technologist this. If you don't know specifically which vertical you have a passion for, the value of working for GSA is that we work with every agency. Right. And every state and local entity. I mean, if you have a passion for technology, law enforcement, transportation, you name it, we work with agencies to help them find solutions that meet their needs. So gsa.gov is a great place to go. And under careers, we always have talent recruiters that are looking to find technologists. Hit me up on LinkedIn if you're interested. Also, I'd be more than happy to get folks connected. And then usajobs.gov. It's as simple as going to the site, typing in IT specialists, and all of the IT specialists within all the different categories come up within all the different agencies. And From there, you can choose whether you want to be a civilian servant within transportation, the Department of Defense, all the way to the Food and Drug Administration, right? If that's a passion that really drives folks. And I would say get in where you could fit in. I'd say that for me, not until 9/11 happened, really did it really make me consider as a young person, think about the bigger things that were at play. And that's what really was my motivation factor to dive in. But here's a secret. I didn't really ask to be a technologist. Just the Army said, would you want to be one? And I said, sure. And I think there's a good spirit about just applying yourself wherever you're needed, and the rest of the doors will open from there. So I would always tell people, just get in where you could fit in and make that space a little bit better, and then see what other doors open that may drive you to do other great things in other places as well.
Amen. Amen. Full disclosure too, I was a nerd that never knew I wanted to be in sales. And then I happened I got in the same thing. It was like, well, do you want to sell? And I was like, I can't. What are you talking about? And then it turned out like, oh man, this is great. And in turn, I helped a lot of people. So thank you for being so open about that. That's how you got into technology. That's really interesting.
Yeah, and by the way, I love business development people. Think about this, for everyone who's interested in doing it, all you're doing is you have a solution and you're trying to find people who have that pain point, and you have the tool to help them solve that problem.
Yep.
And that is an amazing opportunity to help people solve problems, and the gratification you get when you help somebody solve a problem and you have a tool that can help them get to where they want to get to. So I just want to throw a quick shout out to all the business development folks. It's not an easy job, but it's a self-gratifying one when you've helped schools, when you've helped hospitals, when you've helped a lot of the things that keep our communities together, solve problems, do things quicker, do them faster, do them more efficiently. That doesn't happen without somebody who knocks on your door, sends you an email, gives you a phone call first.
Absolutely.
So for all the business developers out there, hey, keep on the diligent work of finding customers, of finding people who you can bless, and much power to you. We support you.
You got a bunch of biz dev guys giving you a pat on the back virtually right now, because yes, it is a grind, and it can be tough. A lot of jobs are tough, but sometimes being that tip of the spear can be really, really, really interesting. Yeah. Sam, we have covered a lot of ground today, and this is, I had high expectations just because I think the world of you, and you delivered in spades. So what have we not covered, something that you want to make sure that everybody listening knows about, or did we cover everything you wanted to cover?
Yeah, I'd say the one last thing I'd like to cover that is big on our minds here at GSA is just also the fact that we want to make sure we look like the people we represent. And I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and accessibility, right, for folks who may be special needs as well. And I think what's at the heart of this is, think about this. We want to make sure that we take all different experiences that Americans are going through into consideration when we're deploying citizen services, from someone who may have grown up in the streets of New York like me, or someone who may have grown up in the valleys of Tennessee, right? We need all perspectives at the table, because it's hard to really provide solutions that work for all Americans if we don't have the voice of all Americans at the table.
So true.
So I say that because how do we get there? We get there through a diverse set of vendors that do business with the public sector. We get there through a diverse set of public employees also that help us achieve the objectives we want to achieve. So I'm a big advocate of just making sure that we're always cognizant of everyone, we need your voice, right? And if it's as simple as filling out a survey, reaching out to the agency or state and locality you normally engage with, and just giving them feedback, to committing your life and your skill set as an employee, or through industry, right? Winning some contracts in the state and local level or in the federal level. I think we need all Americans to be participating in their government to the best extent as they possibly can, from the smallest act to the largest, so that we can be good stewards of not only the tax dollars that come in, but also make sure we deliver on behalf of every American. So that's just kind of the wave tops of what's important here at GSA. And I just want to thank our leadership for enabling us, empowering us for doing all of this important work that we're doing, and doing it in a way that we're mindful of everyone's needs and not just for a few. So
Yeah,
that's about it.
Well, yes. Also, thank you from me to you. I'm glad that we got linked up, and I so appreciate the work that you're doing. Not only selfishly, but it's so amazing to hear about the work that you guys are doing in order to make everybody's lives better. And so, because a lot of people, I think they take it for granted sometimes, because it just sometimes when government works and it works for you, it's almost invisible, right? And then it's only when you need it, or when then you're like, that's where that's that building. Oh, that's where I'm supposed to go. Oh, that's where those people are. And then, solving a problem, bringing that technology to the forefront, being able to have somebody like you to kind of quarterback and bring them through that process is incredible. But that being said, I've taken a lot of your time today. I've taken some time from your family as well. So I tell them thank you for lending me to me for just a little while. But Sam, I want to really say thank you again for taking time to be on the podcast. It was a great conversation. I hope everybody else enjoyed it. And like I said, all the links to Sam and the resources and the websites, I'll put it down there. But and also feel free to follow Sam on LinkedIn. There's a lot of great nuggets there. So Sam, thanks for being on.
Thank you for having me, Andrew, and appreciate the time.
All right, guys. Well, this is another episode of the GovTech Advisors podcast, and that's a wrap. See you, team.